Hey kiddos, how are you? I hope you're well. I hope your families are well. I hope remote learning hasn't been too disruptive to your lives. It's Mr. Evans. Sorry, I'm in my bedroom, so the camera's all weird and you're kind of looking up my nose, but that's just going to have to be how it is for a little bit. Let me try to adjust. Um, if you have any questions, you can always email me or post a comment in the Google Classroom stream and I'll get back to you. Yesterday we looked at, or I hope you looked at, most of you looked at uh, China's one-child policy as it relates to scarcity. And today we're going to look at the effects of population growth. But before we do, here we got our buzzer beaters. These are easy peasies. These are like softballs for remote learning. The term feudalism is best defined as a holy war between Christians and Muslims, process in which goods are traded for other goods, division of political power between three separate branches, system in which land is exchanged for military service. I hope as you look at these, land stands out because we know that feudalism was a system based on land ownership and the relationship to land, whether you're a peasant, a knight, a noble, or a king. Maybe even easier is our second buzzer beater. In European and Japanese societies, feudal social status was usually determined by, and we know in our social hierarchy, feudalism has four classes: king, noble, knight, peasant, based on birth. All right, I'm sure you guys rock that out. Our throwback, based on yesterday's notes and the classwork that I posted, and I hope you guys are clicking submit at the end of that classwork to let me know that you did it. Why did China start the one-child policy, and what are three negative impacts of the one-child policy? I'll just give you guys a couple seconds. I know you're not going to fully be able to do this, but for the first one, it's kind of obvious. The government of China was freaked out that the population growth was too high for the resources that were available. And I don't know if you remember our first day of the scarcity unit when we looked at Malthus, and he was freaked out that food production went like this and population went like this. And so there was going to be a point where there were too many people for the amount of food available. Well, that's kind of what the Chinese government was thinking. And so they thought to themselves, what can we do? Well, you're a dictatorship, so you can force people to do things. And they implemented the one-child policy in 1980. And in some ways, it was a success. Like, people have less babies. The population growth of China went down. But it's had long-term negative consequences because one, there are way more men in China than women. And sadly, that's because of selective abortions. Families in China, knowing that they could only have one child, would choose to abort baby girls in favor of baby boys. Two, there's not enough young people to support the old people. So it's kind of crazy, but you think about there's an entire generation that has no brother, no sister, and no cousin. But what they do have are two parents and four grandparents. And so there's not enough working people to support the old people in China right now. And lastly, and maybe most sadly, it was the violation of women's rights, as women were forced to have abortions, and some were even forced to get sterilized, meaning they had a surgery that doesn't allow them to have babies. All right, we're going to go on to today's notes. I'll try to keep it brief. I know I feel like I'm talking too much, but I always talk too much. And we're going to look at long-term effects of population growth, right? And so today in the world, there's about 7.4 billion people. And it's going to keep going up over your lifetimes, but probably during your lifetime, it's going to start peaking off. So if you look at this curve of population, you notice it starts to flatten. And that's going to be several decades out, but the population can't go up forever. And there's a number of reasons for that. But the question is, can the world and our governments and our countries support the needs of 11 billion people? And as I think you saw, the population is not growing equally all around the world. Most of the most of the population growth is happening in the less developed countries of the world. So you guys might use the words like poor countries or third world countries, but I'm going to use the term less developed countries. Um, but that is where there's more people being born than anywhere else. So this graph here, if you look at this, this is Africa's population growth going up, up, up. Asia, where more than half of the world's people already live, is going to increase. And then you see that the plateau, the S, and they're going to start, the population growth will start going down. Down here, this is America. This is Latin America. This is Australia. Very, very flat growth. So most of the world's new people moving forward are going to be Asian and African. And we don't want to discourage new people, but we also want to make sure that everybody in this world has a dignified, good life to live. And so it's going to put pressure on food supply, water supply, energy resources as population goes up. So here's world population, that little corner. Here's our carbon dioxide emissions, which causes global warming. This is our, excuse me, I'm looking at it closely. This is our fresh water usage. Fresh water is not an infinite resource. We can use it up. This bottom graph is how much of the rainforest we cut down, all going up. So we've got to be worried about two things, population and resources, and can they live together? So one of the issues is what happens when you have all these people and you have all these new mouths to feed. The easiest way to feed them is by growing food. But when you grow food, whether that be animals or plants, it puts stress on the earth. And if you grow too many plants, the earth can turn bad. And if you have animals and you allow them to eat the plants, the earth can turn bad. And that's what's called desertification, this word right here. And if you look at the front part of it, you see desert. And it's basically a word for good land turning into bad land. And so all of these red, orange, and yellow spaces on the earth are places that either are already deserts or might become deserts. And it's really hard to turn bad land back into good land. And so what's scary is the amount of people are going up and the amount of land that we can farm on is going down. Obviously, we see this every day in our communities. The world sees it every day in their communities. As the amount of people go up, we consume more goods. The amount of waste and pollution that we create also increases, which damages our air, damages our water, damages our oceans, and we get really sad situations like this. There are whole swaths of the ocean that are filled with plastics, where really life can't live. And so taken together, when we put all of this together, population is increasing in the less developed countries. We need to make sure that they get to live a life as good as our life here in a rich, more developed country. But at the same time, we also have to we have to take ownership. It's the rich countries that are causing the pollution. We can't blame the poor countries for this. So this graph is really interesting. Is if everybody in the world lived like an American, you'd need 5 planet Earths to support us. If everybody in the world lived like somebody in the United Kingdom, you need 2.8 Earths to support us. But then when you go to the less developed countries, notice if everybody in the world lived like somebody in India, we'd still be fine. You wouldn't even need one world to support us. And a country in Africa called Niger would be a perfect balance. And so as I leave you guys today, just think about the choices that you make, what you buy, what you throw away, what you pollute, and try to create a world in which others can enjoy the lifestyles in which we all live. All right, kiddos, hope you're well. Shoot me emails or put a post on Google Classroom if you have questions. Take care.